Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I am very pleased to have my friend Taylor Matthews, who is the co-founder and CEO of Farther with us. Thanks for being here, Taylor.
It's great to be back.
I like having you just off of a red-eye flight, which means that we could maybe take advantage of you, get you to say a bunch of things you wouldn't normally say because your just brain is not right. So
That's right. I'm feeling very vulnerable right now.
perfect. Have it. Well, look, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit about because I look out of all the things going on today, MI is one of the biggest topics of conversation, and you are someone who has a background in tech, as well. So I think it'd be interesting to maybe just tell a little bit about your origin story here, so people get a sense of it before we get into it.
Oh, sure thing. So I've been somewhat tech adjacent most of my career, or at least tech and finance adjacent. I started my career as an analyst in an investment bank selling software companies to bigger software companies. Then I did strategy at Fidelity for a bit. I started a wildly different company that distributed tech for development products in southern India. And then most recently, before founding Farther, I was at a fintech company that focused on the 401k advisory space. And that was very much the origin story of Farther for me, was seeing how many different advisors, from independents to wirehouse advisors and everybody in between, how each of them struggled with the transactional burden of just running an advisory business, in addition to being there for their
Yeah.
clients and growing their book.
So, I mean, intentionally, you started this firm that's at the intersection of, fintech and finance, right? So, and I think picking like a lot of, smart guys are doing today, looking at the entire wealth management space and saying, this stuff, the fulcrum of everything is the advisor, right? And their business. But what's interesting about that, kind of where we are today and we're kind of worried about is AI, because AI is also, at the fulcrum of everything. Or at least, aspirationally, it feels like it could do a lot. I mean, as far as it, works today, I'm sure you're doing it at your firm, and advisors are adding efficiencies, through AI. But what do you see? Because you intentionally set this firm up with, technology and finance in mind, and now we have this new technology. So how do you as somebody with all that fintech, experience look at this?
So I'm going to speak from both sides of my mouth here. Like
That's all
on
right.
the one
That's
hand,
we all have to do that.
right? So on the one hand, people have been worried about technology broadly replacing the advisor for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the discount brokers when they came in were that was a big fear. The internet was like a big deal when that came in. Is that going to be the death of advisors? Then there was robo advisors, and all along the way there was worry about fee compression. And yet here we are in 2026, and there hasn't been any material fee compression from the advisory side. Larger scope of services for sure, but we're still here.
Yeah.
Um, the flip side of that is like, all right, AI is a very different type of technology. And just like all of those great innovations of the past, I think it does open up a new way to engage with the world of financial advice. But for the most part, I think the Gen Z, millennials, they want more advice than their parents' generation. I think they still care about having a flesh and blood human being on the other end of that, whether that's over a Zoom meeting or whether that's, face to face in person, looking eye to eye. So I don't think advisors are going anywhere, but I do think that they're going to end up with lots more tools.
Yeah. And I mean, we're already using it. So how does AI affect the industry? Well, you're using it today. We're in there using it. And I guess if AI could answer the phone, would you want it to in your business? Most guys would say, what am I saving and not having an assistant? $75,000, $80,000. I just as soon have them answer the phone because that's what I want to project to my clients. And the clients who have $5 million with me, they don't want to talk to a machine answering service.
Oh, that's right. I talk about solving for three different dimensions for the clients that we want to work with. There's a dimension of wealth, so how much wealth do you have? And you have a different service offering for an ultra high net worth client than you do for somebody who's in the asset accumulation phase of their lives. There's different type of service that you provide for somebody who's extremely sophisticated, who wants to understand everything that you're doing and kind of be a co-pilot alongside you, versus somebody who is, willing to throw it over the fence and say, please just take this off my plate. And then there's a dimension of technological trust where there are some folks who want to, have that flesh and blood human in the room with them. There's some that are comfortable in a virtual environment. And then, look, there are folks who are very comfortable having, an AI boyfriend or girlfriend, and like they're going to have a different expectation about their wealth management experience than perhaps others too. And I think there's products for each of them, but I don't think that's terribly different from where we have been in the past.
Yeah, from what I mean, aspirationally, can it pick stocks and everything? I mean, I'm just how many advisors pick stocks today? It's just it's a move, right? There's some people who can do it better than a machine, and machines are going to have a very hard time taking into account with sort of stock picking, regulation, emotions, all the different things that are human driven that come into the marketplace, right? So I think that's kind of an issue. So
You
where
hire
I
an advisor for expertise, judgment, and trust, and I don't think that that's going to change. Like there's lots of really great data that an AI can pull from. It can give you a technically correct answer, but does it have? Can it imbue trust in a relationship? I think that's an open question.
yeah. Um, I also worry about AI. I mean, I think there are some genuine concerns. I think right now I look at it as an efficiency tool, right? And it's really helping and it'll continue to do that. And I think people with money have other jobs and they don't want to make money their job, and trust a machine to do it. But kind of where I am today on it. But I am concerned about regulation. So I think that's something that we have to sort of take a look at. So if I'm Elizabeth Warren, I'm on the committee, and I look at 401ks, right? These retirement accounts that are sort of nationally worked. I would say, well, you ran this through AI. Why do you get a commission? Right? I could also say, if I'm Elizabeth Warren, you didn't run this through AI. Why do you deserve a commission? Because you didn't. I mean, we just don't know where this is headed. So, as CEO of a firm and trying to think out, I think that's a real concern because we don't know where the regulation is going to come on this and how much do they even know that, our industry is adapting it every day.
Yeah. Well, I hope that and I believe that where we'll ultimately end up from a regulatory perspective is just as we've had other innovations, like is an index fund. Is that financial advice? I mean, it's a package of securities that have been selected for a reason. Is a robo-advisor actual advice? It's currently regulated under the SEC in the same way that a traditional RIA firm is. So I think that there are frameworks that already work. And ultimately, if you are going to be providing financial advice, whether there's a human in the loop or not, you have a burden of trust and a burden to prove that it is correct. And I don't think that changes. I think that just because we have a different tool to use that may have different types of business models associated with it, it doesn't change the burden of proof that you're providing a solid financial service, trust-based service to your
Yeah,
clients.
and the fiduciary versus the commission thing comes up in that again. So that's part of part of people to sort out as we go, right?
You got it.
Um, Broader industry trends. So putting AI aside, but it's obviously all part of it. But advisors are moving, voting with their feet. They sort of left the wirehouses, and now they're looking for different models that are out there, right? And kind of what's best for them. Um, but certainly a shift into more independent firms, independent models. How do you? And my contention has always been that, really this battle between the wires and the independents was turned into a battle of ideas, right? It was a battle of structures at one time, and now it's a lot of people sort of agree with this general idea that, advisors own their books and things like that. How do you differentiate, farther and all the stuff that it can do, technologically from other firms that are in sort of that mix? Because now you have a bunch of RIAs, hybrids, sort of a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah, well, I think there's so it's no surprise to anybody that there are, I think, 70 different PE-backed RIAs that are out there,
Right.
something like that. Probably will be more next year. And virtually every single one of them is running the exact same playbook,
Yeah.
where their management teams are paid to mash up revenue because the more revenue that's there, the more reliable it is. So you get a higher multiple on it. And cut costs because that also drives up EBITDA, and therefore you'll end up with a higher total enterprise value. And that works great uh, for the financial backers and for the management teams, but it doesn't work so great for advisors who are then sold, you know, uh,
Yeah.
without their real ability um, to influence that decision. Wherever the private equity firm and management team happens to, find a buyer.
I,
Um,
I yeah, I'm kind of breaking that down into, good guys and bad guys. I mean, we used to be, it was easy in the beginning to say the wirehouses are bad, right? That was like almost shooting fish in a barrel. It was too easy. But, they lost the war, but they retreated into their strengths. They do a lot of things well. I mean, if you want a friend, get a dog. There's no culture there. But you know, great compliance, great back, solid back office or national reputation, good, sophisticated products and services. For some people, that's fine. So now you do have these bad actors in the sort of PE space that you're pointing out. It's really, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, right? These guys are still trying to control the advisor's business and everything else. And in fact, there's a cottage industry of people trying to get out of some of these bad deals, that they did.
I've encountered them.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that's interesting because advisors, are the kind of due diligence they would do for their clients, they're kind of not doing for themselves. Because I don't think all PE is bad, but I think there are bad actors in there, and I think that they're putting advisors in positions that are obviously not healthy.
What I'll say is, look, it's great that we are valuing the advisor and what the advisor does in building a book of business and treating clients well and pooling that capital into a valuable asset appropriately. I think that's great. The it's really enticing to take that big check because you have kids that you have college to pay for, your retirement to fund, or maybe you just want that vacation home or take some chips off the table. And it's great to have those options. What is not great is its impact on the client experience when you pursue one of those options and it's not everything that you thought it might be. And
Yeah.
I think it's challenging to understand what it's like on the other side when you're in that seat because everybody's going to say we have a great firm culture and we have great technology and we have all this and that, but the fact is everybody outside of folks like us is using the exact same technology. It's probably not that differentiating. The culture, I think, like is pretty questionable. If you're just going to be carted off in 3 to 5 years, is that really a culture that you want to be a part of? Well, that you need to take a good hard look at that. But at the end of the day, it's great to have options. I hope that we represent a counterpoint to those options and a different way of looking at growing your business, at monetizing your business eventually, and one that is, oh, well, here to stay.
Well, and then not to put too fine a point on it, but you have a balance sheet. I mean, you guys have capital that you can deploy on behalf of advisors. So they want to grow, or they need succession or retirement, that kind of thing. I mean, you're able to be there for them.
Absolutely, and we deploy that balance sheet, what I hope very effectively, in pulling some of the resources that are otherwise only accessible to very large firms forward. So things like trust and estate and tax advice and planning for business owners, a team of CFPs, investment specialists, like the list goes on. We're very much here to deliver a very high tier experience to whatever client we need to serve, and that does cost money. We're in the fortunate position where we've been able to raise capital and can pull those resources forward. But otherwise, I think it's going to be increasingly challenging for a small firm to replicate the
I agree.
full service offering that some of these mega firms will ultimately end up with.
Yeah, I mean that's why you kind of see this reconsolidation. Everybody broke apart. Now they're trying to figure out how to come back together. But they're voting, with their feet for the options that they, like. Um, I I want to get back to one of the key differentiators for you, not necessarily with AI, but with technology in general. So you see, another thing I think as we move into this world where, technology is going to become more and more important, harder and harder for the smaller standalone RIA to kind of figure this out and make sure they have the best, piece. Talk a little bit about your tech. We talked in the very beginning about this, junction of finance and fintech that you've been part of. T Tell us a little bit about what you built, why it's better at farther than where the else they could go.
Well, so this goes all the way back to our founding, where we believed that all else equal, if you could pull everything together under one platform and make it all just work, that's a better experience for advisors and for clients. So that's the North Star, so to speak. It's that that family office experience that scales all the way down to folks still in the accumulation phase on the client side, and for the advisor side, to take what is often many different pieces of technology that as much as firms purport to, that they integrate well together, it's really challenging to get a whole bunch of third-party software to talk to each other and bring it under one roof and then you can make it talk together. The flip side of that is, it takes a while. As it turns out, building a wealth management platform costs a lot of money and takes a long time.
Yeah.
But we've been at it for, 6, 7 years now. And I think it's, we're just in such an exciting place where all of the fruits of that labor are really coming together. And we're just seeing our team hit the accelerator on a very, very strong foundation from an investments perspective, from a data perspective, and from what we can bring to the advisor community from a tools perspective.
And in that vein, as technology seems to be taking these leaps and bounds, what you've built, you feel confident that it can take on the next step, that it's there and ready to go. So as AI starts to maybe achieve some of these, ambitions that it has, that you guys are ready, versus the sort of regular RIA who has to sort of, bolt on a whole bunch of different things to try to make things work.
Well, I'll tell you that we lean hard into our partnerships with great firms like Anthropic,
Yeah.
where they've told us that they love working with us because we're pushing the bounds on what they can do. And that is, that's the place that I want to be in. That I want to lead from the front from a technology perspective, and we are absolutely there. It is a challenge, and it does take quite a lot of engineering resources to be in this position. But now that we are, man, it feels really good, really special to be in this place.
And how do advisors react? I know you're on the phone with advisors all day. I mean that's what you do. But how do they react when they've been there, say 3 or 4 months, and they're using the technology, versus even let's say if they came from a wirehouse or they came from an RIA.
Look, we just had our first Farther Fest, which is like our gathering of all of the advisor team last week. And I can't tell you how many folks came out to me to personally thank me for the impact that it has had on their business, on their families. And I think it is one of those things where you kind of have to see it and live it to believe it.
Yeah.
You know, get through the onboarding process, and then suddenly you're seeing your business grow, and many times grow again for the first time in years. And that is, I mean, it just makes me feel so good, and it's so validating to hear that feedback.
That's great. Well, I tell you what, I look at that as a high note. Let's end on a high note. That's great. Growth is something that's been elusive in this industry for a long time. So that's terrific that your guys are having that kind of fun. So, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll do it again.
Thanks so much, Tony. Great to see you.